Today we are traveling to Australia. I bet you already know something about Australia. When you think of it, what do you picture? Was your first thought of a kangaroo? Yeah, that's cheating because it's on the cover. What about a koala bear? Or did you think about the accents that people have that live in Australia? What else do you know? We are going to explore Australia from letter A all the way to Z and see if we can learn a few things that maybe we already know and maybe that are new, some information that's new to us. Before we start with letter A, let's show you where Australia is located. This page has a map, and you can see the map of the world. Over here is the US, and you could go all the way across Europe, across Africa, across Asia, down to Australia. Or remember that the map also goes this way. So if we go from California out to like where Hawaii is, it kind of cuts off here, right? So you know that it extends over to this is the same ocean. So technically, if you left from the U.S. West Coast and flew down this way, you would end up in Australia. Do you see this line here? This line is the equator. So the US is north of the equator and Australia south of the equator. That's important to know because we're going to find out what its nickname is. And do you see how if we zoom in on this, it's right here. Australia is the entire island. It's big. Look how big that is compared to where we live, right? So let's see what the book says. It says, "Good day, mate." This is how Australians greet each other. G'day means good day. Mate means friend. So they're basically saying, good morning, friend, or good afternoon, friend. They call Australia Oz, and they call themselves Aussies. Australia is an island country, like we said, the entire island, south of Asia. It is between the South Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean. About 19 million people live in Australia, and it ranks 53rd in world population. Now let's see what letter A has to say. Okay, A is for Aborigine. Have you heard that word before? Probably. So the Aborigine, these are people who have lived in Australia for at least 50,000 years. In the 1600s, explorers came from Europe and they called all of the different people living there Aborigines. Aborigines still live in Australia today. Some paint their bodies for special ceremonies, but now they usually dress like most other Australians. Aborigines have names for their different groups. So down here it gives a whole bunch of names, and they're kind of hard to pronounce. One of them is the Koori. The other names are maybe Murri, Bama, the Palawa, Wongi. There's a few names here. There's about 8 of them. And that's very similar to here in the US, where you might have different native tribes that all had different names. And then when the Europeans came over, they were like the natives. Well, these are Australia's natives. Okay. B is for boomerang. A boomerang is a specially curved piece of wood, and if you throw it with some skill, it comes back to you. A boomerang is used for hunting and also for playing games. Ancient rock carvings in Australia show that people used boomerangs more than 14,000 years ago. C is for probably something you did not think of, cricket. We're not talking about the animals, we're talking about the sport. So cricket kind of looks like baseball, but it's popular. It's a popular sport in Australia. It's played with a wide, flat bat, so it's not curved, it's flat, and the red ball is slightly larger and heavier than a baseball. Games can last from 1 afternoon to 5 days. That's a long game. Cricket was brought to Australia from England. And then D is a funny word. D is for didgeridoo. The didgeridoo is a musical instrument made from a tree branch that has been hollowed out by insects. Ugh. Aborigines invented the didgeridoo long, long ago. They can make it sound like animal calls or like roaring thunder or like a bubbling brook. So like a creek, like water going down a stream. That is a didgeridoo. E is for eucalyptus. Okay, so eucalyptus might not have been something you thought about, but I bet this guy was, right? So a eucalyptus tree is also called a gum tree, and it has these leaves with a strong smell, and they're kind of oily. There are over 600 different kinds of eucalyptus trees. Koalas eat only eucalyptus leaves, but these leaves don't let other animals eat them because they're poisonous to most other animals. Also, Australia's national flower is actually a flowering tree, which I think is called the golden wattle, Wattle. Wattle. September 1st is National Wattle Day, and everyone is encouraged to plant a tree or a bush. F is for their flag. Now, there is a lot of information on this page, a lot of history. Australia's flag shows Britain's flag in the upper left corner, and then this large star stands for the 6 states and 2 territories of Australia. These smaller stars over here stand for the Southern Cross. That is the group of stars or the constellation that you can see when you're south of the equator. So when you're north of the equator, you see different constellations than when you're south of the equator. So the Southern Cross is visible in the Australian skies, and it's right here on their flag. Australia, again, just like the US, used to be several British colonies or groups of people. So that's why their flag is up here. And then in 1901, Australia became its own country with its own government. Now it belongs to a group of nations led by Britain. And then the Aborigines flag is also down here. They have their own flag plus the Australian flag. On the Aboriginal flag, the color black is for the people, the red is for the earth, and the yellow circle is for the sun. Lots of information there. D, I bet you thought of Finding Nemo. Did you think of that when I asked what did you think of with Australia? That kind of ties in with letter G. G is for the Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef is the world's largest coral reef, and coral are tiny, brightly covered sea creatures. And the reef is made of both live coral and skeletons of dead coral. It is home to many beautiful fish and sea plants, and the reef is so big it can be seen from space. H is a popular bridge. It's the Harbor Bridge. Tour groups can climb the stairs to the top of the Harbor Bridge in Sydney. The climbers have to be tied on with the safety rail as they climb, and the reward at the top is a great view of the city and the Sydney Harbor. The bridge spans 1,650 feet, and it carries up to 15,000 cars at a time. It has 8 lanes of cars. It has 2 lines of trains. It has a walkway for people to walk, and there's a bike lane. So you can bike, you can walk, you can take a train, or you can be in a car. Big bridge, popular bridge. Okay, we already talked about. I is for island. Australia is the largest island in the world. It is both a country and a continent. Most of the people live in large cities along the eastern seacoast, and Tasmania, down here, is an island south of Australia, and it's Australia's smallest state. Aussies call Tasmania Tassie. J is for 2 funny words, jackaroos and jillaroos. And it pretty much refers to being out on the farm because Australian cattle and sheep ranches are called stations. And the ranch workers or station hands, depending if they're a guy or a girl, they're called jackaroos and jillaroos. K, you know what K is for. It's on the cover, and it's a kangaroo. But maybe there's something in here that you may not know about a kangaroo. So kangaroo are very popular tourist attractions. Um, Almost everyone wants to see a kangaroo when they go to Australia, but a kangaroo is a marsupial, which means it's a mammal that raises its young in a pouch on its body, right here. And this is a baby kangaroo. Do you know what they're called? A joey. So Australia is home to many animals, such as the kangaroo, that don't live anywhere else in the world, except perhaps in zoos. And L is for a different type of animal. It's for lyrebird. Yeah, it almost sounds like it's a bird that doesn't tell the truth, that lies, but lyre means something else too. The Australian lyrebird gets its name from its amazing tail. The male's tail spreads out and it forms the shape of a lyre, meaning it's the type of instrument that's kind of like a harp. So can you imagine playing a harp here? Kind of looks like a harp. Lyrebirds can copy the calls of other birds and animals. Lyrebirds can even copy sounds such as a ringing phone or a honking horn. There you go. That's for L. And M is for something we all like. M is for money. So Australia's unit of money is the dollar, but it's not like our dollar. It's the Australian dollar. Australian money includes coins and bills, but the bills are printed on plastic instead of paper. So this, do you hear that? It's like a plastic paper, right? That's kind of what their money is printed on, is more of a plastic instead of paper. Queen Elizabeth II is pictured on the Australian $5 bill. She is the Queen of Britain and also the Queen of Australia. Since Australia became its own country in 1901, the Queen is no longer as involved in the government there. Australians elect their own people to run the government. And N is for this national park. I'm not quite sure how to say it. I'm thinking it's Nambung. But Nambung National Park. Let's see what this is. It's a park in Western Australia and one of more than 500 national parks in the country. In Nambung, visitors can hike into Pinnacles Desert, which has thousands of these giant rock pillars jutting out of the yellow sand, and you can go walk around in these big pillars. Very pretty. O is for the Outback. Now we're not talking about the restaurant, but the restaurant is inspired by Australia, right? But the Outback is something else. So here's a picture of what we're looking at. It says beyond the coastal cities of Australia is a huge area known as the Outback. There are very few towns in the Outback. Most of it is desert, and the rest of the land is grassland used for raising cattle and sheep. But the Outback is also called the bush. So a large section of Australia, nobody really lives in it, and it's called the Outback. So the largest sheep station in the Outback has about 70,000 sheep. That's a lot of sheep. Australia has 9 times more sheep than people. Wow. P is for platypus. Okay, so the platypus is one of only 3 mammals in the world that lays eggs. A platypus has a tail, kind of like a beaver's, and a bill like a duck's. Platypus live near rivers and lakes, and they live only in Australia. Q. Q is for a region of Australia known as Queensland. This is where many Aussies vacation, or what they call, instead of going on a vacation, they say go on holiday. Okay? The state is famous for its beaches and tropical islands and lush rainforests and the Great Barrier Reef. So, man, that just looks like vacation, doesn't it? Queensland began as a what did I just say? Let's try that again. Queensland began as a colony of British prisoners in 1824, and by the 1840s, other people were moving in. Today, the state produces huge quantities of pineapples and bananas and mangoes and sugar cane. And you can see on the map, it's this area up here. It's highlighted in orange. R is for radio. Now, this is a little bit different. Why do you think they have the radio and a kid talking on the radio? But in the outback, remember, where not a lot of people live, children listen and talk to their teachers over the radio. The children live too far from any town to attend school, so students receive and send tests and homework through the mail. These days, they might also use the phone or the internet and videos as well as the radio. But this is how many children lived and learned over the last several years. And Australian children attend school from ages 5 to 15. Many keep going to school and eventually attend universities. Most schools give students a summer vacation in January. January? Oh, they live south of the equator, so their seasons are backwards. Their summer is our winter, and their winter is our summer. So summer vacation is in January. And think about that, at Christmas, they might be wearing tank tops. Crazy. So, yeah, I just said that. S is for the city of Sydney. You recognize that? Sydney is Australia's largest city. Like most Australians, many of Sydney's 4 million people come from other countries. Sydney is on the east coast of Australia and has over 40 beaches. It also has one of the most famous buildings in the world, the Sydney Opera House. So both Sydney and Melbourne, which are Australia's two largest cities, they wanted to be the capital. So basically, the city of Canberra was built between the two, and it became the capital because they couldn't decide between the other two cities. So they just built one right in the middle. T. Now, T is, I think, a little bit gross right here. T is for Tucker. And Tucker is the Aussie word for food. Australian food is a blend of different countries' cooking styles. So Aussies eat a lot of fish and shellfish, fish and shellfish, and meat that's cooked on the barbie. Barbie is the barbecue. And a small beef pie, often served with sauce or ketchup, is a favorite snack, especially when watching footy, which is Australian football. See, why did I say it sounds gross? Because down here at the bottom, they talk about all these different foods that they eat, and a lot of them come from the sea. So if you like seafood, you will enjoy eating some of the foods in Australia. But if you don't like seafood like me, you're going to have to find something else to eat. But yeah. Okay, so we're not going to go through some of the recipes, but they have a few recipes at the bottom there. And U is for the Big Red Rock. You know what it's called? Uluru. Uluru is right here. And it's that big red rock in the middle of the country. And it rises from the flat earth. It's almost as tall as the Empire State Building. Can you imagine putting the Empire State Building right here? This sandstone rock is known as Uluru or Ayers Rock. As the sun sets in the outback, the rock seems to glow. So the sunset hits the sun and just the colors burst. Uluru is Australia's most popular tourist attraction, but it's out in the middle of nowhere and it's hard to get to. Uluru is the ancient Aboriginal name for this rock, which is sacred to the Aborigines, and the Aborigines call their religion the Dreaming. Most Australians are Christians. Other religions that people practice in Australia besides the Dreaming are Islam, Buddhism, Judaism. So this was a special rock for the Aborigines. B is for Victoria. Look at those fields. Victoria is a state in southeastern Australia called the Garden State. Farmers in Victoria grow vegetables, apples, grapes, and ranchers raise cattle for meat and sheep to eat the meat and also for their wool. The city of Melbourne is the capital of Victoria, and many of Australia's factories are in Melbourne. Victoria is named for Queen Victoria. She ruled Britain and the Australian colonies from 1837 to 1901, which is when they gained their independence. W is for something that's kind of funny. I'm sure you've heard of this. Waltzing Matilda. Do you remember the song? Right? So, Waltzing Matilda. Most Australians consider Waltzing Matilda to be the national song. It was written by Australian musician. His nickname is Banjo, but his real name is Andrew Barton Patterson, and he wrote it in 1895. The words Waltzing Matilda mean traveling from place to place in search of work, carrying your belongings on your back. It's a little bit like a gypsy, right? All right, this page has two letters. X is for exports, even though the word starts with an E, okay? And Y is for yabby. So for exports, Australia exports more wool than any other country in the world and much of the world's wheat. The country also exports minerals such as coal and gold and iron ore. And then there's this thing, the yabby. It's a freshwater crayfish. And yabbies look like small lobsters. They are a favorite Australian food. And catching yabbies is also a popular hobby or pastime. And finally, Z. Okay, Z is tricky. There's not a lot of words that start with Z, but there is a word that has the word Z in the middle. So it's Anzac Day. I think I'm saying that correctly. Anzac Day is named for soldiers of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. So Australia and New Zealand Army Corps. Who fought in World War One. Anzac Day is a national holiday on April 25th, honoring people who have died in all wars. Children like to be in Anzac Day parades. Some other special holidays are noted down here. So Australia Day is January 26th. It honors the day when the British first came to Australia. May 27th is a day to honor the Aboriginal people and apologize for how they were treated in the past. Boxing Day, not that kind. Boxing Day is December 26th, and it's a day to relax after Christmas and give presents in boxes to people who work for you. And then there's the Queen's birthday. It's celebrated in June. And I saved this one for last because I just realized it's celebrated on June 8th. That was this week. So this week, a couple days ago, was the Queen's birthday. Or was it? Really, she was born in April, on April 21st, but her birthday is celebrated in June. So her birthday was celebrated this week, even though it's not her real birthday. So that wraps it up for Australia. Thanks for taking this trip today. I am Cassie, and this was so much fun. And we loved Australia, didn't we? Wouldn't you just love to visit there? So next week, we have a different story. We're headed to a different part of the world, back to Europe, to visit Germany. So we'll see you there.